because greatness is something that not just an achievement, it's a state of being. It's a lifestyle. And when you change all areas of your life to not just away from pain motivation, but toward pleasure, towards greatness, that is how you build a lifestyle and an identity that matches greatness.
You have wondered what you would be able to do if you were the ultimate version of you, right? You would then have an easy time creating what you want, and yes, effortlessly enjoying life too. Now, you may know this already, the influence you have over your reality is far beyond what you've been told. Soon, you realize that your outer world is merely a mirror of your inner world, and we're here to connect the dots for you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to God Mode.
All right, welcome back to God Mode.
What's up, everybody? How are you?
This week, we're going to talk about some deeper things. And before we start, we do want to touch on something that we briefly mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was the energy of sexual transmutation. And I know that last week there was a different podcast episode that we put in there. Guys, it was such an important one that we had to put in and, move out part 3 of this episode. So interview that William and Brady did with Dr. David Morehouse, who are gentlemen very highly respected. And if you haven't got a chance to listen to that, please go back and listen to that episode, because he's going to be bringing some very talented and skillful teachings to the upgrade community that we're extremely excited about pretty soon.
Oh my gosh, David is legendary. And he was formerly a whistleblower, but he only will share declassified information in his podcast. He's a man of honor, and he now has a great relationship working with the military community, so his relationships are good. He did bring some incredibly interesting insights, and at one point I believe that he had taught over, he's up to date, taught over 26,000 individuals on his methodology. And his teaching was really about how to peek through the veil, how to see and gather data and interpret data that exists already all around us, but we just don't know how to interpret that data. And with the teaching that we're going to bring into Upgrade is specifically for what if you could perceive data that's important and that is relevant to you? What if you could see through the veil and understand, oh, this is what I need to do to have maximal success in my life? That would be incredible for my relationships, for my business, for myself, for my personal life. And this actually is very interesting because I think it's connected with the topic that we left off of. Because sexual transmutation, although very different than what David talks about, is another methodology of passing something through the veil, passing something through the portal. Now, we're not going to talk extensively about this because this is a free podcast episode, but we will say we dive in really deep into some of our trainings when we talk about the sexual transmutation energy in the most respectful ways, of course. But we will give you a brief overview about what this is.
Yeah, and our clients who have been through Upgrade X and train with us on the specific topic understand that it's such an honorable and high-level topic to discuss and to train on. So that's why we're just going to give a brief overview that what we want to share with our audience, for our viewers and for our listeners, wherever you're at right now, is that we all harness this power of a life force. Every creature on this planet has the life force to recreate, right? Human beings have a very unique added ingredient, if you will, to the life force, and that's our imagination. Something that we've talked about plenty of times on this podcast, and that Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich. And I think it's important to tie it into sexual transmutation, because if you begin to understand how powerful this masculine and feminine energy of life force is connected for all of us at all time, you begin to respect sex in a different way. You begin to think it's about it in a different way.
Yeah.
So sacred, right? I think
Doesn't mean you shouldn't have fun, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely a topic that we're not here to judge anyone's lifestyle, right? We want you to understand that it doesn't even have to be the act of sex or masturbation where you can begin to just harness that energy. If you feel the urge throughout the day, that's when you can be like, okay, this is actually a signal for me to control this energy and put it into something I really want to focus on.
love that. Yeah, it's truly a sacred energy of creation. And when you understand the willpower and the imagination of the mind, they're two separate, yet they work together type of energy. The willpower being the masculine force, the imagination being the feminine force. When they work together, there's already going to be transmutation. And if you leverage sexual energy on top of it, that brings creation into the physical. Now we'll leave it at that because today's topic, we're going to dive into the masculine. We're going to dive into how to create with willpower, because a lot of people ask us, hey, you always talk about easy and effortless, being able to have amazing things happen for you. And of course, you still create with work, with physical effort, yet your physical effort is to compensate for what you cannot do in the mind. So today we're going to explain a bit more on the masculine energy, on how you can develop greater willpower so that you can create more sales, have better relationships, have better success personally in different areas of life. And then next episode, we can talk more about the feminine energy of imagination. Because listen, too often time when people talk about sexual transmutation, all they talk about is sex, which is actually an important topic, and how to leverage the energy from that. However, we're not going to dive into that in our free episodes. We're going to talk about that in our trainings in a very appropriate and careful, respectful manner. Here, what we're going to talk about is what can you do, whether you have a partner or not, to begin right now, today, to understand, okay, willpower versus imagination, and why these two forces work hand in hand in such a way that allows you to create that much faster. So today, we want to dive into talking about willpower.
So we live in a world now, William, that the masculine energy is actually, kind of taking a bit of a hit in the media world, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing it with some topics like transgender, sex change, and the masculine energy. It's kind of begin some negative energy towards it over the past, I would say, 10 to 15 years of like, hey, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. And granted, there are some things that the masculine energy does at times that's not appropriate, right?
Yeah.
However, it's such a sacred energy,
It's
just like
the
the feminine
user
energy.
of the masculine energy.
Exactly. Yeah. And people are doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them. So what would you say is like, let's talk to someone who's 25 to 30 years old. They've just exited, college, and they're looking to get started as a young entrepreneur or wherever they're at in their career. And they need to call on some more willpower in their life. They haven't tapped into it quite yet. And where would you say would be a good starting point for them to tap into?
Oh man, I mean, even like the 30 to 40-year-old, fund managers, investors, sophisticated entrepreneurs could also utilize more, right? And frankly, all of us could use more willpower. However, the paradox is willpower is simply our conscious mind saying, I have dominion over the unconscious. Give me dominion. And the unconscious mind is like the ocean. The conscious mind is like the boat that's sitting on the ocean. How do you use the boat to control the ocean? It's not easy. However, the true meaning, based on our philosophy here at Upgrade, the true meaning of willpower is being able to carefully incentivize the unconscious mind, the ocean, and leverage the waves, leverage the current, leverage how the ocean is moving to bend the ocean to your will. And so to be more specific, let's say someone wants to achieve a certain goal. Well, sometimes when we set those goals, there's literally no incentive for the unconscious. We're like, well, yeah, I want to hit this goal because I need to pay bills. There's just an away from motivation, meaning away from pain motivation. There's no pleasure. The unconscious mind may or may not care for it. Now, if the pain is great enough, the unconscious mind will do it, but it won't be doing it because it wants to do it. It will be doing it because it has to. Now, there's nothing wrong with using away from pain motivation, as long as there's also toward pleasure motivation. Because humans are either motivated away from pain or toward pleasure. To leverage both means you're using the currents and the waves of the ocean and going with not only the flow, but navigating with strategy. So get more specific. I would say if you have a goal that you want to hit, but you haven't hit yet, consider learning how to create greater willpower by giving yourself rewards. That sounds strange, doesn't it? That sounds strange. Giving yourself reward to hit some goals. Well, wouldn't that help with your willpower? Yeah. See, willpower is not about forcing the mind to do what you don't want to do. Willpower is about understanding the mind's preferences, your own natural dispositions to pain and pleasure and natural, what do you want? What do you not want? Being able to understand that. And willpower is about being able to control and leverage using those things. Like if you're a master of a horse, you wouldn't just want to, frankly, we love animals. You would want to take good care of the horse, not just by punishing it. If the horse doesn't do what you want, you need to give the horse incentives, right? Pleasure and reward, food, drinks to incentivize where you need to go.
Yeah. There's a few things that you said in there that we could spawn off. I think the first thing that kind of popped up to me was like when people are using pain motivation, say, hey, I just have to pay bills, and they think it's towards motivation. So we've said this before on our podcast, guys, like when we ask clients what they want, and they're like, I don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to be in debt. And we're like, okay, what do you want, right? So if you think that just bills, having to pay the bills is a towards motivation, this is our saying that you need to wake up on that a little bit, because that's not towards motivation, right? Pleasure, reward that William's talking about, that's part of the sexual transmutation. Think about a time that you've been so motivated and so eager with a sex partner, right? And obviously an ecological exchange. That's a very powerful feeling. Imagine if you can tie that feeling to rewards that you want in your life. So you're moving towards that. And if you have the willpower, the masculine energy to keep driving you through because you're so towards motivated, that's going to get you there faster. One of the reasons that I think William created with Upgrade Focus, there are entry-level training. If you guys haven't tried it yet, please. Only $100, super powerful. And I'll tell you why. As Upgrade the programmers, our job is to help you get what you want, but you got to design it first, right? So it's like if we went to a developer and said, hey, I want a house, and the developer's like, give me a blueprint first, right? So that's the very first training. The secret in this is that when you begin to design your future self of that, who I'm going to be, where I'm going to be, you feel more of a sense of connection to it. And that's powerful because let's say that a friend or family member came up to you and said, hey, I need you to help me move this weekend, my furniture. Most people would be like, man, that sucks, right? That's inconvenient. But as a friend or family member, you're a good person, you're going to do it. Versus if a stranger comes up to you on the street and says, hey, would you help me move my furniture this weekend? You'd be like, I don't know who you are, and I have things to do. That's sometimes how we feel about our future self. We don't have a sense of connection of who we are and we don't have such a connection of a feeling to them that we won't do the things for them sometimes. We won't you're like, you overeat one day. You're like, oh, future Michael will worry about the 6-pack abs. I don't get enough sleep. Future Michael will worry about the sleep. I don't save enough money. Future Michael will worry about retirement or all these things. But once you design that, you have a sense of connection to it. You have a feeling towards it. Now the willpower will drive you in such a way because you're like, I care about that person. I care immensely about that person. So again, that's why our entry-level training has had so much success, to propel people to the future massive financial success they have, because they're like, I'm doing it for this person. I know who I want to be.
This is so good. What Michael just said, it's when you don't have a connection to your future self, it's like, why would I do that, right?
Just to pay some bills.
Yeah, and the future self is a stranger to you. If you don't design your future self, you have no willpower to create what your future self wants.
Yeah.
So, when you begin to play with the masculine energy, and by play, I mean really testing it and leveraging it strategically, you begin to discover willpower is not what people think it is. It's not the force my mind to do whatever I want. It's not. It's just like using Michael's analogy of asking a friend or family to move. You can't force them. They'll do it because they feel like, they're kind of obligated, they're nice. And your unconscious mind feels the same way when you ask for a goal or something you want. And your unconscious mind's like, I'll do it because it's me. Yet your unconscious mind's like, I don't want to do this now. There's no incentives. So you create incentives. So to develop willpower, it's actually really easy if you begin to understand, and it makes total sense logically. How can I get myself to do what I don't want by giving myself so much reward after I do what I don't want that it doesn't feel like something I don't want to do. It feels like something I actually want to do. Simple, right? If you can get yourself to do what you don't want to do by giving yourself so much awesomeness in the back end, you will not consider, oh man, that's too much. And imagine if your friend comes to you, hey, would you help me move this weekend? At first you're like, no, I don't want to, but I'm going to do it because you're my friend. Your friend's like, I'm going to give you $1 million to help me move. Be like, sign me up.
Do it all myself.
I'll do it, right? Where can I go now, right? Yeah. And that's the difference. Leveraging willpower does not have to be painful. Yeah. It's when you don't understand that your unconscious mind needs incentives, then you are forcing your mind to do something you don't want to do. And that's not a healthy cycle. That feels like a rat race when it comes to career moves. That feels like a toxic relationship when it's a romantic relationship. That feels like no incentives to get six packs or work out, because why would you when that's just all you see is hard work?
And that's a message that we see a lot on social media about just work harder, grind more, hustle more. You wonder why people aren't having the success that they want. You wonder why a lot of people are still struggling with depression or just negative emotions in general, or burnout, financial rewards, burnout, not just with themselves individually, burnout romantic relationships, right? Oh. So let's give some tools or just some tips, right? We've talked about many of them, but if it's your first time watching and listening to our podcast, again, thank you, welcome. Let's give some tools for the person who's like, okay, William, Michael, this sounds awesome, but I sometimes when I do these things, like I'm focusing on, I got to pay the bills or I hit this resistance, right? What do they do then when they're thinking about willpower as force?
I got it. So one thing that we can suggest to them, I think this is almost like a full system. Of course, we teach everything in the training. This will give you a very good outline and allow you to begin immediately to leverage and increase your willpower. First off, always become aware of different areas of your life that you want greater control over. The areas of your life that you feel like I need more willpower in are the areas of life that we're going to use this formula that we're going to share with you today. And the formula is very simple. Let's say you look at the different areas of your life, like family, romantic relationship, personal growth, or spirituality, business, wealth, and career, and then, maybe it's what else is there, right? There's a lot of different areas of life that you can consider. And so when you consider these different areas, look, you can even consider, maybe I want to travel more, right? Maybe that fits into personal growth. Maybe it's my relationships with my friends, my social life, right? And then of course there's that important area of health and fitness, right? So anyway, all of these different areas, and there's more, If there's an area you're like, man, I really could work on that area, then what you do is you look at how you punish yourself and how you reward yourself. For example, let's say it's the gym or fitness and health, right? If you had a meal that is like, you really want to have it, but then you have a massive dessert, do you punish yourself after? Or do you reward yourself by eating healthy that fits your nutritional plan? See, the people that go for the massive dessert that they know would not be good for them don't have a way of measuring whether that's good or bad for them. They just think it's not good to eat that. Oftentimes, they don't have a nutritional plan, and they don't have a reward structure set up to be like, well, if I hit these macros, I'm going to reward myself this way. And if I don't, then I'm not going to have X, Y, Z this week. That may be in a different area of life. And then let's say maybe it's business, right? Maybe you're like, hey, I want to make X amount of dollar to pay the bills. That's just that's just to avoid punishment. I've done that personally. Like candidly, I've done it where I'm like, okay, I have X amount of bills. We need to hit this number. And I just hit that number and then I don't make any more money. And I'm like, dang it, I'm not profitable. And as simple as that sounds, I've done that so many times. And then I'm like, wait a second. To be profitable, I need to have these incentives, bigger incentives. And then my mind's like, oh, I need to be profitable. Because now it's like, oh, I don't need to just pay bills. Minimal energy expenditure, right? Your mind's going on the path of least resistance. So if you only have to avoid pain, your mind will avoid pain. But if you have rewards that's tagged on, then your mind's like, I want the reward. So then you look at your relationships too. Like how many people have a burned out, boring relationship? There's a reason people say they fall out of love. Falling out of love is because they are avoiding pain within relationship and not solving the problem that caused them pain. Because pain is a signal to indicate that there's something they need to work on. But then if they don't set up rewards, things that bring some pleasure, and I don't mean just sex, right? It's like maybe going on trips that are fun with a couple. Maybe it's like doing certain activities, maybe something simple in town. Maybe it's going to a meal that's wonderful. We call them dates, right? Yeah. But maybe it's something else that you would do to bring pleasure to both parties by attaching pleasure to the other person's their presence, right? So when you begin to consider, what can I do to reward myself by being together? You begin to consider, and then you make that more pleasurable. Your mind's going to make that a high priority, and your mind will make it a wonderful activity. Wouldn't you agree?
I do, and I think that most people that are listening to this, whether you're a high performer already or you're just getting to the field and you've been attracted to this podcast because you're like other high performers are listening to this, you're probably looking for some level of congruency internally and the external world to mirror that for yourself. So I want to give you two questions to ask for you. Now, in our trainings, there's much deeper deprogramming that happens, right? That happens at the identity and the value level system. So we can help faster with this. So I'm just going to give two questions that can help you today if you're not yet in our trainings. Let's say an old behavior or habit comes up. You're the guy or the girl who had a hard week and it's Friday and you're like, I'm going to go drinking, right? I'm going to go any substance that like it's going to relieve the stress. But you know it's not good for you. As William said, in the other analogies, like the person who overeats the dessert, instead of choosing to reward themselves actually with a healthy micronutrient food that's going to help them longer, right? So begin to ask yourself, for what purpose am I choosing to do X, Y, and Z, right? When I begin to ask that question, when I was choosing to have alcohol on Friday, when I had a long work week, I deserve this drink. I need to relieve the stress. And I begin to ask that question, well, for what purpose am I really choosing to have this alcohol? You know, what benefit is it having for me? So begin to ask yourself, for what purpose? Your unconscious mind wants to know. Trust me. It wants to know for what purpose. The second question that I would begin to encourage everyone, right? Whether you're in our trainings at any level, Sales God, Upgrade X, and beyond, always be asking yourself, what are the language? What am I saying to myself around these decisions? Because those language that you described yourself, those are the codes, right? Oh, I deserve this because X, Y, and Z, right? Did you put any pain motivation in there when you say I deserve this because X, Y, and Z? Or are you selling it sometimes, I used to do this too. Oh, you messed up on your diet, you messed up on your exercises, you're so stupid, you're so lazy. Might as well go off and have the cake and the beer anyway, right? I'm hands up guilty. So if you're out there, if you said those words and you're like, man, I've said this to myself, all good, right? Language does not just describe, it defines our reality. So begin to ask yourself those two questions if you're not yet in our training to help you push past decisions that are not giving you the results you want yet with us.
Yeah, and if you jump into our training, what we will always begin with is designing different areas of life and then attaching reward, just the right amount of rewards. And frankly, there's an abundant amount of rewards and then some amount of away from pain motivation. And then carefully orchestrating that across different areas of your life will allow you to have a boundary set, a path set for greatness. And because greatness is something that not just an achievement, it's a state of being. It's a lifestyle. And when you change all areas of your life to a, not just away from pain motivation, but toward pleasure, towards greatness, that is how you build a lifestyle and an identity that matches greatness.
I think that, we started this podcast talking a little about sexual transmutation, which is part of the amazing book that Napoleon Hill wrote, Think and Grow Rich. There's a reason he brought light to that. And there's a reason we also are talking about the masculine energy today with willpower. And, in a future episode, we'll talk about the feminine energy of imagination and where the creation can lie, where, it takes seed. These are very powerful things that don't get talked about enough in our world and our society. There are portals and there's secrets hidden all around us in plain sight, something that, David Morehouse specializes in. Again, if you haven't got a chance to listen to the previous episode, where William and Brady have a fantastic interview. I love that episode, by the way. David's, what a guy.
Yeah.
There's secrets hidden all around us, guys. And these are one of the secrets. Life force of sexual transmutation and the divine masculine and feminine energy that we have in us at all time. You begin to tap into these things. Watch how easily it becomes. If you've listened to our episodes before, we say the word easy and effortless a lot. This is the beginning of what we mean with that.
See you in the next episode.